Plague of the Zombies is a film made by Hammer Film Studios in 1966, a full 2 years before George A. Romero's Night of the Living Dead. So needless to say, it marches to the beat of its own undead drum. It's not derivative of George Romero's Night of the Living Dead, like pretty much every zombie movie that came after that. But Plague of the Zombies is set in a spooky little mining town in Cornwall, a tin mining town. Some of you may or may not be aware that Cornwall was basically built on mining, primarily tin mining apparently, and the fact that it's set in Cornwall is no accident, to say the least. It really does have a bearing on the film's plot and the film's premise. And I don't think it's really a spoiler alert to go into all of that, because if this movie was called The Black Death, which it basically alludes to being about a plague, or a stock standard plague for the first third of it or so, then what I'm about to say might be a spoiler, but the spoiler is there in the title, Plague of the Zombies, so I think I'll just spoil away. So the basic premise of Plague of the Zombies is all these primarily young men in the town, in this small Cornish mining town, keep winding up dead from something that the locals are referring to as the Black Plague, but they're not allowing any autopsies or any examination or investigation or any of the usual things that Lieutenant Columbo would normally do if he was on the case. And this is extremely frustrating to the local doctor, the local young outsider doctor, of course, because he keeps getting blamed for the deaths. There's been like 24 deaths under his watch, apparently. And the locals keep blaming him for the deaths while simultaneously refusing to allow him to do any research into them or autopsies or anything like that would usually basically give you the cause of death in about 3 seconds. So they're all again that. Especially the local squire who kind of runs the town. He's the local mining magnate, equivalent to the private equity firm, the Vanguard or BlackRock or something like that, if you were looking for an equivalent in modern society. So basically he runs everything in the town, owns everything, much like BlackRock or Vanguard probably do in Cornwall these days. And it turns out that he's been spending a bit of time in Haiti, the cheeky little bugger, and he's learned how to make zombies. So he's basically working on an army of mindless automatons to work inside his tin mine for no money, no annual leave, no medical cover, not even needing to feed them or any of that. It's basically the private equity firm's wet dream, at least before AI came along, as a better way to replace everyone. But back in 1966, I guess the thought of creating human Haiti-like mindless automaton zombies was the fantasy of every big evil mining magnate, I guess. So that's the premise of this movie. Set in Cornwall, of course, hence the whole mining themes. And thematically, this one is all about class, of course. It does feel like the script was written by a union shop steward or something like that. It's very much a class struggle type movie, an eat the rich type movie about the haves and have-nots. It really is hitting you over the head with a blunt instrument in terms of social commentary. The zombies, of course, do stand in for the oppressed working class, the oppressed mining class, and the living are standing in for the elites. Basically, everyone living in the movie essentially is an elite of some kind socially. They're outsiders. They're not wanted in the town. And that goes for the squire and also the doctor and his daughter that visit the town as well. So let's just say Plague of the Zombies isn't exactly subtle when it comes to social commentary. It is about the haves and the have-nots and the classic working class blue collar struggles that we've seen in various countries, various counties, not only in England, in places like Cornwall, also in places like Appalachia in the United States. And in fact, this movie could probably be remade in Appalachia with an all Appalachian cast as a kind of Southern Gothic thing, if Hammer were ever decide to do so, and I'd be down for that as well. So, yeah, it's quite different to George A. Romero's Night of the Living Dead and every zombie movie that came after. Every zombie movie basically has its own social commentary, and the earlier ones are more to do with these similar sorts of themes. The ones that were made earlier than Plague of the Zombies, the Universal movies and so forth, like I Walked with a Zombie, White Zombie, and so on and so forth, are really mainly commenting on colonialism. So in its own way, Plague of the Zombies is pretty unique because it's commenting on the whole union struggle, I guess you'd say, and the tenuous battle between big evil mining magnates, in inverted commas, and the put upon workers that are just trying to avoid the the black lung, the black plague that's spoken of in this movie. So it is quite effective in that regard. The black plague really hangs over the whole town like a pall, much like black lung and conditions like that. The danger of mining does hang over a lot of these mining towns to this day, and the zombies work as an effective sort of a metaphor for that. So it is one of the more thoughtful Hammer movies. In my opinion, one of the better Hammer movies, even though it's one of the less known ones. Doesn't star Christopher Lee or Peter Cushing, which is probably why it isn't as well known as something like Dracula, Prince of Darkness, or Curse of Frankenstein, or Rasputin the Mad Monk. But it is quite a highlight of the Hammer filmography. Comes highly recommended from me. Very creepy atmosphere, this one, like a lot of these Hammer movies. I'm getting more into the classic horror right now, I guess. Maybe it's a reaction to the whole AI onslaught. These movies just feel more tactile than a lot of things, more real, more atmospheric, more creepy, even though they aren't as obviously visceral or as gruesome as what came later in the slasher era and so forth. They do have a certain kind of charm, certain kind of relaxed charm to them that really does make them quite enjoyable, quite atmospheric. They're almost like oil paintings come to life in a way. They do feel like art, as opposed to films that are being produced nowadays, which feel more like content. So I think you will get a pleasant surprise if you do go back and visit these movies that you might not have seen in years, and compare them to what's being churned out to be quickly forgotten nowadays. So, yeah, hopefully I'll be working through more of these Hammer movies. Colour me impressed by Plague of the Zombies. I would give it 2 thumbs up. And I really would recommend anyone checking it out that's after something a bit different, after something with a bit to say, and has all of those themes and creepy bits of atmosphere. So, Plague of the Zombies is time well spent. If you did enjoy this review and you're enjoying the content on the channel, by all means, please like, share and subscribe. And I hope to see you next time. Take it easy.